How we doing, friends? My name is Jesse, and this is Male Nurse Mentor. It's a channel where I, as a nurse working through my career, am just trying to give back to the community, give some information. If you found this video, you know what I'm gonna be talking about. This is a continuation from that first video. This is a series on prison nursing. And when I say prison nursing, just know I also include jail nursing. I've done both. I've done the jail time, I've done the prison time, I've done it all. I've worked in downtown intake, I worked upstairs doing sick call in the county jail, I've worked in the prison for almost 5 years. I've seen it all, I've done it all. Plus, I also don't work in the prison anymore. And if you do work in the prison, oftentimes you don't want to be putting your face out there like I'm putting my face out here right now, right? There's some pretty bad people in there. You don't want to make a lot of noise and kind of create, a face to a name and still continue to work behind the walls. You don't really want to do that. That's why you'll see a lot of the OGs, right, that are actively working in a prison. By OGs, I mean the OGs on the workforce side of things. They're not going to be making videos, right? Oftentimes they've been there so long, they share their knowledge in different ways, oftentimes if you're there in person, right? But for me, I've left. I can make videos about it now. And as you've seen by this channel, I've been making videos even while working in the prison for some time now. I just haven't been speaking about the prison setting. But with enough of that out the way, these videos are meant to be a little bit more raw, so bear with me. It's not scripted. It's just like we're hanging out. The last video I touched on, is it safe? Is it dangerous working in the prison or the county jail? Is it dangerous working as a nurse behind the walls, right? So if you're interested in that topic of a video, check out that video. Go find it, you'll see it. Today's video, however, is to talk about what is it like walking the yards, right? What's it like walking in the county jail or the prison setting? What's it like just walking? What is the vibe like? What's the atmosphere like? And I just want you to know, I'm making these type of videos just to give you a feel, right? Just to talk about it, create that conversation, create a place where you can learn about this, right? If you're curious, right? Especially if you're a nurse trying to work as a correctional nurse. I'm just thinking back to when I started, there wasn't a lot of information out there. And this is just me making video by video, trying to share what it's like, right? Because a lot of people that have that information, they're not making videos like I said. But I will. I will now, because my desk is right over there. I get to work from home in a different setting. Maybe at some point I'll go back to the prison, but maybe wearing a different hat. It was a great time, friends. It was great in many ways and uncomfortable in many ways. It's an experience, and you'll see through this series what I mean. But walking the yards, friends, let's talk about it. But also, friends, if you have any questions, whether personal or general, if you want to reach me, find me on Instagram at Male Nurse Mentor. A lot of you have reached out already, which is awesome. Everything right now is still free. I'm still very small. I get a couple messages, not very many. I've even set up a few phone calls, video calls with a couple people. I don't know for how much longer I'll be able to offer this for free, but for now I still will, and gladly. Depends on time and how much busier I get, as life continues to go for me. But for now I will, and gladly. Just reach out to me on Instagram. Hit me with a follow. Just reach out. I'm here. So let's start with the county, right? County jail, intake, upstairs. What's it like walking the yards, right? Yards in the county jail. Well, the biggest difference you're gonna find out in the county jail, everything is in a building. There technically are yards, but they're not really yards. They're like cement corridor type rooms, where people can go in and exercise. And by people, I mean inmates. Oftentimes there's like tables and stuff like that. It just depends on the county jail, right? For mine, very limited windows to the outside, all one big building, and a lot of hallways and a couple different floors, right? Everything is very much locked down. Everything is very much escort based. Guys are always in handcuffs, and they always have the waist and the ankle restraints everywhere they go. It's just very locked down like that in the county jail. You're gonna find out in the prison, it's different. But in the county jail, everybody's escorted by an officer, right? All the inmates. Staff, you're just kind of free to roam. You don't have to walk with an officer. I remember when I first got into the county jail and I was working there, I felt like, oh, I can just walk wherever I want. No one's gonna like look at me or anything. Like, I'm not gonna walk with an officer. And no, you're not. You're free to go about whichever way and floor you wanna move, right? by yourself. Everything's very much locked down though. You'll see there's doors behind doors behind doors. And what you'll see through these doors is that you don't have the key for them. You have to often slap the door, make a noise so someone hears you're there, for the person behind there in a different room to open it for you, or you wave at the camera, hey, I'm over here. And the elevators, right? There's an elevator, at least in my county jail, there's an elevator, and I think there's like a total of like 4 or 5 floors, and I think one floor in between them was like a floor that I couldn't even get access to. The point to the elevator is you don't have control of that either. You go into the elevator and there's a camera in the middle pointing down at the middle of the elevator, and you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Whichever floor you're trying to get to, you show it and you wave it to the camera. The camera looks at that number and they take you there. They take you to that floor, boom, right? And then you get to these corridors and these hallways, and they're very long, very quiet, because the hallway is safe, very safe. You got cameras there. And then in these hallways, you have other doors, and those doors lead to the dorms, right? So the picture that I'm trying to paint here, hopefully I'm doing a decent job, is there's no inmates moving around freely. It's only staff that can move around freely, yourself included as a nurse, right? I as a nurse can move wherever I want freely, go see my patients, go downstairs to intake, stuff like that. You do get a radio in county jail. I got a radio and I was able to use it just like the officers were able to use theirs, right? I don't remember all the code and stuff like that for it, but they have different codes, right? One is for like medical emergency. One is for like trying to get the attention of someone who isn't at their desk. Hey, you know, call this extension. And, you know, there's a code for things that are more serious, right? I have very unfortunate stories behind that stuff. I don't know if I'll ever share them on here, but yes, they have different types of codes for this stuff, right? The communication that happens, it's all contained in this building, right? So overall, the picture I'm trying to paint here is that it's very locked down, very escort based. These corridors are all very secure. Everything is very secure besides maybe intake. Intake is where you actually see the police officers coming in with the people just arrested, and the police officers have them at their hip, right at their side, waiting for them to go through processing and booking, right? They first come in to see the nurse clears them, they take them into booking. The whole time there's an officer with them. At some point, I think right after I see them, right after a nurse sees them, we accept them in, right, medically. That's why it's very important to be sharp on your skills, because if a guy comes in and you suspect anything funky going on, right? Maybe you're like, this guy's acting very weird. The idea is through your medical assessment, exam, questionnaire, you find out, hey, this guy took something, right? Maybe the guy took some shrooms, or, you know, maybe he took something he doesn't know what he took, and now he's like acting all belligerent or withdrawn, or something is off, right? You're like, I'm not gonna take this guy in, right, and risk, you know, his safety. Go get him cleared out of hospital. The doctor signs off at the hospital, then they bring him back. Now, you know, there's different ways to do it. In intake, like I said, the officers bring these inmates in, these people just arrested, come through intake, we process them, we accept them, they go to booking, and the whole time, like I said, there's an officer with them, and they go into the holding cells. And yes, these are the holding cells that you imagine whenever you see like, just those shows, right, where, you know, you're seeing these guys in county jail. They have like so many people in a room and stuff like that, right? Again, they're all secured in there. So this is the main picture, right, of county jail. Everything's secure, everything escort based. These guys aren't free to roam, right? So I'm painting that picture. Now, let's talk about prison. Prison's a lot different. When I worked in county jail, I got so used to seeing these guys in, you know, handcuffs, waist restraints, ankle restraints, getting escorted one by one, right, with an officer to wherever it was they were going. That's what I was used to. And in the county jail, whenever you would do sick call, you know, they would pop the door open, bring them out one by one type of deal. Not always by an escort, but, you know, one inmate out at a time type of thing, to where you would see them out in the dorm setting, right, by the officer's desk. But in the prison, I remember the first time I got into the prison setting, and I was like, just so, I felt so uncomfortable, because I was so used in the county jail, everything being escorted, these inmates always, you know, in handcuffs. In the prison setting, these guys are free to roam, right? Free to roam, not in handcuffs, just, you know, walk in the outside halls, walk in the halls in the building. You know, there's specific places they can do this. They can't do this everywhere, right? Like not in admin, but they can do it often in, you know, medical buildings and stuff like that. As you're walking to your unit, you'll see inmates walking with you alongside you. And keep in mind, most of these guys are just friendly. They'll say hello and stuff like that. As a male working in the prison setting, you know, it's just a normal hi. Unfortunately, if you're a woman in the prison setting, you are going to get a lot more attention, obviously, you know, because of the work environment and the setting. And I give a lot of credit to the women that go behind the walls and work, because I can't imagine myself going to work in a female prison. I just can't. And having to deal with the opposite of what they have to deal with, pretty much. I don't think I'd be able to do it personally. You know, they're free to roam. They're not in handcuffs. And oftentimes if you go out at a certain time of the day, right? Because it's such a long walk to go from the parking lot to the main entrance, through security, to key control, through key control, out the main door, into the prison. And once you finally get into the prison, you start by walking through these really big yards, right? You have your own walkway, but on these big yards, these inmates can be out exercising, running. They could be going to breakfast. They could be, you know, going to their medical appointments. There's a lot of movement, right? And if you go out at a certain time of day, you're gonna see, for me, what I kind of like felt when I first saw it, especially compared to coming from the prison, or especially compared to coming from the jail, is it felt like I was like a fish in a shark tank. It's just so much activity going on. And every single one of these guys has done something, right? You don't know anything about them. You just know they're out on the yards, and it's pretty intimidating. When I think of this scene, if you've seen the movie Shock Collar, that's a pretty decent representation of what this is like whenever they're out on yard in that movie. Just a bunch of guys sitting on tables, a couple guys doing laps, a lot of guys doing their workout, a couple guys playing handball. And sometimes when you're medical, right, you have to go to a certain building during these hot hours, right? When by hot, I mean hot activity, right? These yards are flooded with activity and movement and a bunch of guys out. Sometimes you have to walk through the yards. And what you want to do is keep your head on a swivel, right? You don't want to like look down at your feet the whole time and not understand what's going on around you, because at any second, something can kind of pop off, right? I've unfortunately been walking home or to a place and something's popped off like 2 or 3 times. Fortunately, it wasn't anything that I was near, right? I was kind of in the yard at the time, but it wasn't anything I was close to, right, in terms of the scene itself. But you don't want to be in that environment. You know, it's quite intimidating, and it could be very dangerous, right, if something pops off. Again, you got to remember, no hostage policy. Anytime you walk out there, any one of these guys can do anything to you. Most don't though. The majority never do, right? But you just don't want to be the one person that actually does get caught in something, right? Something dangerous. So you always want to keep your head on a swivel, especially during hot hours, especially if you have to walk actually through the yards to a building. You know, when you got guys on your left, guys on your right, everyone's around you, right? You'll see what I mean if you ever work there, or check out the movie Shot Caller and look at the yard scenes. That is pretty accurate. And for me, friends, I worked in one of the last GP, general population yards. There's a lot of yards that are different nowadays, and there aren't many just normal GP yards left. You know, and one thing about it, I'll just mention it here before we conclude, is this video, you know, there's a lot of information here. I enjoy making this. I think this is a good place to stop, is whenever you're walking these yards, you'll find that there's a lot of segregation. Mexicans hang out with Mexicans, and there's 2 different types, right? You got Norteños and Sureños, and you got the blacks hanging out with the blacks. I'm not gonna get into the depths of it because I never really paid too much attention to it. It wasn't my job to know that part. But just know you'll notice right away the segregation going on. But anyways, friends, that's gonna be it for this week's video. This series is gonna continue. This is just a video on walking the yards in a county jail, in a prison setting. The main takeaway from this is that there's a big difference. In the county jail, it's all secured, everything is escort. The guys are always in handcuffs, ankle and waist restraints, versus in the prison setting, you feel like a fish in a shark infested waters, especially if you're not used to it, and especially if you actually look at what's going on, and understanding that you're around some people that at some point broke the law, right, pretty severely, but these guys are very kind, right, most of the time. but you can't also just take their kindness, right, at face value. You always have to be a little bit on guard because of your work environment. You don't want to be that one person, right, that gets stuck in a sticky situation. Always know your environment. And by that, I mean, you always have to remember where it is that you work, right? Everything is locked down for a reason. These guys are stuck in there for a reason. You're the one going into their house, going into their home. They don't get to leave, you do. So there's a lot of different nuances of this dynamic. But this video is just about walking the yards. If you have any questions, friends, any comments, leave them down below. And the series will continue. I'll see you guys on the next one.